For more on this story, let's bring in President of Capital Research Center, Scott Walter. And Scott, I know that you have testified to 8 committees in Congress and recently testified to DOGE this summer on your research on taxpayer-funded NGOs, which I know goes back years. Thank you for joining us. As Christine just mentioned, there are now growing calls for Governor Tim Walz to resign. I know that your team has provided in-depth data on mass oversight in the state of Minnesota alone. When do you think we will finally start to see some accountability?
Well, that's hard to say because, of course, the political apparatus in Minnesota has not had much issue with this until very recently, when it blew up into such a big story, thanks to people like you, that it could no longer be ignored.
The Attorney General says more than 90 people have been charged in this investigation since ICE has been on the ground. And as you know, rapid developments by the day with this story. How do you follow this money trail to possible national and international criminal activity? What does that process even look like? Where do you even begin?
Well, it's not at all an easy thing. And of course, unfortunately, the best way to have that happen is for both the state and local law enforcement to take it seriously and for them to be cooperating with national law enforcement. But of course, in Minnesota, they are very much opposed to cooperating with national law enforcement.
Well, Governor Walz has said he had been working for years to strengthen oversight in the state, especially due to sanctuary protections. You talk about local and federal and how they intersect. Do you think that that made it easier for some businesses to essentially hide in plain sight?
Well, presumably, yes, because again, you know, the state and local folks, on the one hand, they're much more knowledgeable about what's going on the ground, right? There's not thousands and thousands of FBI agents just covering Minnesota. But on the other hand, the state and local folks need with they're trying to make international connections or national connections, they need national law enforcement. All this is supposed to be working together, but in many states, alas, it is not.
Well, we know that Minnesota ranks high when it comes to the number of charities. And though Minnesota, I mean, right now it's being scrutinized, the story doesn't stop here. I mean, there are charities all across the country. What message does the current investigation in Minnesota send to them and how they operate nationwide?
Well, you know, the biggest principle that's involved here is not complicated, and I dare say 90% or more of all Americans would agree. If you get taxpayer dollars, you should be able to show that you are actually helping people with that. And it should be easy for the public to see whether you're helping. But unfortunately, there was very little transparency in Minnesota, which is why it took years for this finally to surface.
The FBI has said this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. To quote FBI Director Kash Patel, we will see what this investigation unfolds. President of Capital Research Center, Scott Walter, thank you for joining us on the National News Desk.
Thank you.